Number 10. The Longyou Grottoes. In 1992, a farmer in China decided to pump out a waterlogged pond. Once drained, he discovered an enormous underground cave system beneath it. He drained a nearby pond next, another cave. By the time the work was done, 36 massive hand-carved caverns had been uncovered beneath the earth. The largest reach 5 stories in height, complete with rooms, pillars, bridges, and pools, all painstakingly chiseled by hand, and every surface marked with the exact same tool pattern running at a precise 60-degree angle. Walls, ceilings, floors, consistent across all 36 caves without a single exception. And not one historical document mentions them. No records, no plans, no folklore. Someone carved out rock equivalent in volume to 5 football stadiums, and apparently told no one about it. You simply cannot conceal years of construction noise or a workforce of thousands. Researchers have floated theories: storage, shelter, a hidden facility. Nothing has stuck. The dominant explanation is that they were quarries, but quarrying leaves behind enormous piles of extracted stone. Archaeologists have combed the surrounding area and found nothing, making this either the most extraordinary building project in recorded history or the most elaborate cover-up of one. Number 9. The Mount Owen Moa Claw. Picture yourself crawling through a dark cave in New Zealand. Your flashlight beam lands on something on the cave floor, a giant claw, complete with dried muscle and flesh still clinging to it, looking as though the creature had passed through just days earlier. This scene unfolded in 1986, inside a cave on Mount Owen. The claw belonged to a moa, a massive flightless bird that died out roughly 500 years ago. Half a millennium sounds distant, but soft tissue simply should not endure that long. Your refrigerator leftovers don't last 5 days. The moa stood about 12 feet tall, weighed more than 500 pounds, and moved on powerful legs tipped with exactly this kind of claw. The cave itself deserves the credit for the preservation. Cold, dry, and sealed from the outside world, functioning essentially as a natural deep freezer. Scientists were genuinely shaken by what they found, forcing a reconsideration of just how recently these towering birds were alive. 500 years ago is only the 1500s. While European painters were producing Renaissance masterpieces, 12-foot dinosaur-like birds with flesh-tearing claws were still walking the earth. Number 8. The Roman Dodecahedra. The Romans documented virtually everything: military campaigns, recipes, sewage infrastructure. But there is one object that appears repeatedly across the former Roman Empire and receives not a single mention in any Roman text ever discovered. These are small, hollow bronze objects with 12 pentagonal faces, each face pierced by a differently sized circular hole, with small bronze knobs fixed at every corner. More than 130 of them have been found, and after over 2 centuries of scholarly debate, no one knows what they were for. It is the equivalent of unearthing hundreds of smartphones buried across medieval Europe with zero documentation attached. Proposed uses include distance measuring instruments, candle holders, and even knitting aids, and the knitting theory actually holds up when tested. The different hole sizes on each face suggest a functional purpose rather than a purely decorative one. They turn up predominantly in Northern Europe and are almost entirely absent from Rome itself. The greatest unsolved puzzle of Roman archaeology may ultimately come down to a sophisticated cold-weather knitting tool. Number 7. The Ubaid Lizard. Figurines. Around 7,000 years ago in what is now Iraq, the people of one of the earliest urban civilizations on Earth were producing something profoundly strange alongside their temples and trade goods. Small clay figurines with elongated bodies and unmistakably reptilian heads, long snouts, narrow slit eyes, and postures that read as distinctly non-human. Some of these figures appear to be cradling infants, and the infants share the same lizard-like features. These were recovered from Tel al-Ubaid, a sophisticated society with established trade networks and early religious architecture. These people clearly understood human anatomy, yet they chose, consistently and deliberately, to model something else entirely. This was not one eccentric sculptor working alone. It was a coherent, widespread artistic tradition. Some figurines appear female with detailed anatomical features. Others take ceremonial poses. They clearly carried profound cultural meaning. But the Ubaid people left no written language, no texts, to explain what these figures represented. They may have depicted deities, fertility symbols, or an elite class portrayed as non-human to signal elevated status. But they correspond to no known deity from later Mesopotamian religion. Whatever meaning they held vanished completely when the culture disappeared. Number 6. The Copper Scroll. Imagine clearing out an old storage space and finding an ancient treasure map. That is roughly the situation researchers encountered in 1952 while cataloging the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient religious texts recovered from caves in Israel. Among them was one that defied every expectation. It was not written on papyrus or leather. It was hammered into pure copper. Inscribing text onto copper is extraordinarily labor-intensive, which signals that whoever made it considered the contents critically important. And what was written on it were 64 separate locations, each describing where enormous quantities of gold and silver had been concealed, with a combined estimated value today exceeding $1 billion. The writing is plain and businesslike, like a contractor's inventory, which is precisely why researchers believe the scroll is genuine. The obstacle: every single geographic landmark it references has ceased to exist. Turn left at the old cistern. Walk 40 paces past the wooden gate. All of it swallowed by 2,000 years of history. Despite decades of determined searching, not one coin from the scroll has ever been recovered. $1 billion described in painstaking detail, permanently out of reach, because the world it was written for no longer exists. Number 5. The Tollense Valley Battlefield. It is 1996, and a man walking along the Tollense River in northern Germany notices a human arm bone protruding from the riverbank mud, a bronze arrowhead still embedded in it. Archaeologists began excavating and eventually recovered the remains of more than 140 individuals. Scientists estimate the real death toll from this single engagement to be closer to 4,000 people. In 1250 BC. That figure is deeply incongruous with everything historians thought they knew. At that time in Northern Europe, civilization was not supposed to exist on that scale. The region was believed to be home only to scattered, isolated farming communities of 50 to 100 people. No one was thought capable of raising an army of thousands, but the bones tell a different story. Many showed healed fractures from prior combat, evidence of career soldiers, professional warriors existing 3,000 years before historians previously placed them. The weapons recovered included bronze swords, clubs, and arrows fired with organized military precision. DNA analysis revealed that some of the fighters had traveled from as far as southern Europe to take part in this battle in a German river valley. Who they were fighting for, what the conflict was about, and who prevailed, none of it is known. The river simply kept the secret. Number 4. The Plain of Jars. In the highlands of Laos sits one of the most bewildering archaeological landscapes on Earth. Spread across a broad plateau are more than 2,500 enormous hollow stone jars, some taller than a full-grown adult, some weighing up to 14 tons. Each one was not assembled from pieces, but carved from a single continuous block of rock, then transported from distant quarries without the benefit of wheels, machinery, or modern equipment. Local tradition holds that a race of giants once inhabited the region and used these vessels as colossal drinking cups, an explanation that, honestly, competes fairly well with the official archaeological theories, which amount to educated guesses. Some scholars favor the interpretation that they stored monsoon rainwater. Others lean toward a funerary function, as scattered human remains have been found nearby. Whatever the purpose, producing 2,500 of them represents a civilization-scale undertaking. Each jar is smoothly shaped with impressive precision. Whoever was responsible went to almost incomprehensible effort to carve and position these massive stone containers across 90 separate sites, and then vanished from the historical record without leaving a single explanation behind. Number 3. The Nebra Sky Disk. Picture yourself as a Bronze Age farmer in central Germany in 1600 BC. No telescopes, no calculators, no accumulated scientific literature. Yet someone living in that era managed to produce one of the most precise astronomical instruments ever found in the ancient world. Unearthed in 1999, the Nebra Sky Disk is a bronze plate roughly the size of a dinner plate, inlaid with gold symbols accurately representing the sun, the crescent moon, and the Pleiades star cluster. Ancient farmers relied on the Pleiades to calibrate their agricultural calendar, making this a highly functional navigation tool, not mere decoration. At over 3,600 years old, it is the earliest known realistic depiction of celestial bodies ever discovered. It should not exist. The prevailing historical narrative places Bronze Age Northern Europeans firmly in the category of primitive subsistence societies. Yet the disk reflects sophisticated, sustained astronomical observation. More striking still, the gold came from Cornwall in England, and the bronze from Austria. These supposedly primitive farmers were operating international material supply chains just to build a star map, completely dismantling the assumption that ancient humanity was stumbling through the dark. Number 2. The Ulfberht Swords. It is around 900 AD. Most Viking fighters are armed with swords riddled with tiny internal flaws called slag inclusions, blades that bend, chip, and fracture under stress. But a select group carries something else, an Ulfberht sword. By the standards of medieval metallurgy, it was essentially a different category of weapon. When modern researchers analyzed these blades, they were stunned. The steel they were made from was not supposed to be achievable for another 800 years. Ulfberht steel contained almost no impurities whatsoever, so clean that the testing equipment was recalibrated multiple times because the results seemed impossible. Producing steel that pure requires a forge capable of sustaining temperatures above 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Medieval blacksmiths had no means of approaching that threshold. The technology, by conventional history, did not exist yet. The name Ulfberht was literally forged into the blade, an ancient maker's mark. The swords were so far beyond anything else available that counterfeiters were already producing fake Ulfberhts by 1000 AD to capitalize on the reputation. Who Ulfberht was and how they achieved crucible steel 8 centuries ahead of schedule remains completely unknown. The knowledge died with whoever held it. Number 1. The Denisovan Bracelet. In 2008, archaeologists excavating a cave in Siberia recovered a piece of jewelry that fundamentally disrupts our understanding of human prehistory. It is a bracelet carved from chlorite, an exceptionally hard stone, not roughly shaped, but polished to a mirror-like finish and fitted with a cleanly, symmetrically drilled hole. It was made by Denisovans, an archaic human species we had barely begun to identify, and it is 70,000 years old. For context, humanity did not invent the wheel until approximately 5,500 years ago. This bracelet predates the wheel by 64,500 years. The hole was not bashed or scraped into the stone. Scientists believe it was created using a high-speed rotary instrument, effectively a prehistoric drill press, spinning fast enough to bore through dense stone without fracturing it. The surface finish was achieved through polishing techniques using treated leather that are functionally identical to methods used by professional jewelers today. The symmetry of the drilling is essentially perfect, requiring either extraordinary skill, advanced tooling, or both. Our physical evidence for the Denisovans is almost non-existent, a handful of bone fragments and a few teeth. But those sparse remains include one mechanically drilled, flawlessly polished piece of jewelry, quietly proving that ancient human capability extended far beyond anything we had imagined.